The real breakthrough doesn't begin with action. It begins with you. The world doesn't respond to what you do, it mirrors who you are. And if you're still waiting for the moment, the permission, the right time, you're not in the game yet. This message isn't motivation, it's a mirror, a test of your inner quality, a challenge to stop begging and start resonating. This isn't content. This is a call. Success isn't luck. It's not chance. It's not some divine gift handed out to a chosen few. It's a consequence. Success always shows up to meet the one who has already become someone strong enough to hold it. Not just to touch it, to carry it. And here's the real mistake. You're chasing success without first becoming the kind of person who won't crumble when it arrives. You want the reward without the refinement. You want to live differently without changing who you are. But the truth is this, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. You are the magnet. And if that magnet is weak, unstable, conflicted, success won't stick. Opportunities don't land in spaces filled with doubt. People don't trust energy that doesn't trust itself. And big things never come to those who think small. That's the law, harsh but fair. If you want to pull success in, stop begging, start broadcasting. Broadcast strength, broadcast clarity, broadcast certainty. And I'm not talking about performance, not a look, not your tone, not your posture. I mean the internal frequency that speaks before you do. It's how you enter the room, how you listen, how you answer, how you hold a pause, how you don't flinch when things get heavy. You can't fake that code. You don't throw it on like a blazer. You build it. One choice at a time, one small act at a time. Every micro action that aligns with your truth makes you louder. Every compromise dims your frequency. That's why success isn't a goal, it's a result. The result of the character you sculpt day by day. You're either becoming the one who can carry greatness, or staying the one who keeps making small excuses. There is no third option. Two forces either attract success or drive it away before it even sees you. Your energy and your character. And here's the deep truth. The world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to your state. Your state is a signal. That signal either unlocks doors or bolts them shut before you even knock. Look around. People don't gravitate toward the most correct person. They move toward strength, inner strength, the quiet kind that doesn't shake under pressure, that doesn't fall apart when criticized, that holds its ground in the middle of chaos. That's character. It's the frame holding up your entire structure. If it's weak, everything collapses. If it's strong, you carry weight others run from. Now let's talk energy. It either lights up a room or sucks the air out of it. It decides if people trust you, if they want to build with you, if they see you as a leader. You can't fake energy. You either have it or you don't. And it doesn't come from outside. It comes from your decision to be full, to be alive, to be in movement, not in misery, to be in resolve, not in retreat. The people who create big opportunities always carry that energy. They're not waiting on inspiration. They're not asking the world, is it okay if They show up with an inner I am, and that I am opens doors most people don't even know exist. Because doors don't open to those who knock. They open to those who already hold the key, and that key is your state, your energy, your presence. If you don't yet have what you want, don't start with the to-do list. Start with your being, with the energy you're radiating, with the character you're cultivating, because nobody's handing you more than what you allow yourself to carry. There's a certain kind of person who shifts everything just by entering the room. When they walk in, the rhythm changes. Conversations get deeper. Decisions speed up. Ideas spark. That's not magic, that's field energy. That's influence. And influence can't be bought, can't be faked. It's grown from the inside out. Influence is the most valuable currency in the world of opportunity. Where there's influence, there are doors. Where there's none, only waiting. To become that kind of person, you first have to kill the noise. Because when your inner world is chaos, all you broadcast is weakness. This isn't about flexing. It's not about acting powerful. It's about your presence. Your silence, your gaze. People can feel when you're anchored, when you don't need permission, when you're not acting, you're being. And that's what draws them in. Your field is not a gift. It's the outcome of how you live when nobody's watching. Do you keep your word? Do you finish what you start? Do you respect yourself in the details? That's what creates a character that doesn't beg, it attracts. Because it's not hungry, it's dense, steady, clear. And the world is tired of hollow, tired of fake. It always responds to real. People ask, how do I stand out? How do I get invited, noticed, chosen? There's only one answer. Become whole. Become the one who has nothing to prove, The one who simply is, and by being creates value. When you're rooted, you're free of need. And people always move towards strength that doesn't need them. Don't mimic the powerful, become powerful. Don't chase attention, generate focus. And suddenly you don't need a door. You are the door. An opportunity walks through you. The real magnet for success isn't your resume. It's not your network. It's not even your experience. It's your internal quality. It's who you become when no one's watching. It's discipline with no audience. Resolve with no applause. Consistency with no guarantee. These invisible things make you visible to the right world. People sense when you have an anchor. Not perfection, just presence. When you stand not because it's easy but because you chose to. That's when they trust you. Because trust is always built on stability. And stability isn't about never shaking. It's about not breaking when you shake. Your character isn't fixed, it's forged. Forged in your responses, your refusal, in holding silence when you want to scream, in taking action when you want to quit, in staying the course after others have walked away. That's what builds resonance. The world doesn't hear your shout, it hears your And remember, character isn't hardness. It's soft strength that doesn't break. It's flexibility that never loses its form. It's taking the hit without losing yourself. It's deep respect for your own word, because when your word means something to you, it begins to mean something to others. Success doesn't arrive to those who wish. It arrives to those whose character is already ready. So everything you do today, it's training, not for show, for reality. And once you realize that every day stops being random, it becomes a brick. In your new strength, in your new quality, in you the new magnet. The biggest lie, believing that success shows up when something outside changes. That you have to wait for the right time, or find the right place, or meet the right people. That's distraction, because success doesn't come in the outer silence. It comes from inner silence. When you stop looking outward and start building inward. Not the world, you. Look at the ones who built something real. Every single one of them had a moment where there was nothing. No resources, no support, no hype. But they had one asset, character. A point inside themselves they refused to leave. And that became the magnet. Not to money, to people. Not to fame, to opportunity. Because when you're dense, strong, whole, the world senses it can lean on you. The problem isn't a lack of opportunity. There's more than ever. But most people can't see it, because they can't even see themselves. They go out into the world without a clear I am, without position, without a vertical spine. And the world, it's a mirror. It will never show you more than what you allow yourself to see. And here's the truth. You don't have to be ready to start. You just have to be decided. You don't have to be perfect to attract. You just have to be real. And that realness is your strongest currency, because it's magnetic. Not for everyone, but for the right ones. And the right ones always bring the best doors. Be the one who doesn't just want success. Be the one who radiates it. Be the one already living in a state worthy of more. And more will come, not as a surprise, as the only possible outcome. Here's a truth most people tiptoe around. You cannot attract big opportunities while carrying small thinking. If your first reaction to a chance is fear, if your default thought is, what if I fail? If you're still doubting your value, your worth, your right to take up space, then understand this. Success doesn't come to those who doubt themselves more than they doubt the world. Before doors open out there, they have to open in here. And I'm not talking metaphor. I'm talking about your inner code, I am worthy. Not some mantra taped to your mirror, a knowing in your bones. Because until you feel that worth, you miss what's meant for you. You walk past it. You reject yourself before anyone else gets the chance. To become a magnet for success, you don't need new tactics, you need a new center. If that center is fear, pressure, comparison, you'll keep running from everything big. But if that center is grounded, clear, worthy, you'll start walking straight into challenge. And that's the signal the world can feel. People move toward those who don't explain themselves, who don't pitch their value, who don't raise their voice to feel valid. They simply move because they know who they are, and that's not arrogance, that's peace. A peace that doesn't need applause to breathe. The first step isn't to change the world. The first step is to decide, I'm done abandoning myself. And once that decision hardens into fact, everything else starts to shift. Not all at once, but permanently. You cannot be magnetic if you're split down the middle, if one hand reaches for the dream and the other grips your fear. If on the outside you talk big but inside you still believe in collapse, that's inner conflict. And it's the number one reason success doesn't stick. Not because it's against you, but because you haven't made space for it to stay. The world doesn't tolerate contradiction, because contradiction is chaos. It's when today you're flowing and tomorrow you're spiraling. Today you're sure and tomorrow you whisper, maybe this isn't mine. That constant forward-backward motion creates static. And static doesn't attract, it repels. Success requires a clear signal, a stable frequency, and that frequency comes from alignment. Deep alignment. You don't need a bigger strategy. You need deeper resolve, to be who you say you want to be, to live it, not promise it. And every day, even when it's hard, to affirm, I'm here, I'm holding the line, I'm not going back. When your thoughts, your actions, and your environment begin to sing the same song, you become predictable to success. Not to everyone, but to the right opportunities, the ones tuned to your frequency. And then you're not chasing anymore, you're found. Not because you begged, but because you existed. So stop draining yourself in tiny doubts. Stop betraying your walk when no one's watching. Stop saying I'm ready when you still live like you're scared. And start broadcasting yourself, not in words, but in state. Because that's the real invitation, not just to opportunity, to a bigger life. You cannot draw greatness if you lose yourself in the little things, if your day is built on reaction, if your attention is hijacked by messages, opinions, other people's chaos. Magnetic power begins with will, with the strength to hold focus while everything screams scroll, quit, escape. And this right here is where most people lose it, not because they don't know what to do, but because they can't hold their own concentration. Magnetic character doesn't flash, it resonates. It's the calm that cuts through chaos, the focus that stops the fluff, the presence that builds trust before you speak a single word. That kind of person doesn't chase opportunity. They become the place opportunity chases, because everyone's searching for something stable. And when you become that, you draw in those who've been looking. But listen, this isn't a role, it's a state. And it doesn't just appear, it's built. It's earned in the moments you almost gave up but didn't. When you could have lied but chose truth. When you could have paused but pushed. And each one of those moments, that's not just a win, that's a brick. In the field that holds, magnetism isn't charisma, it's gravity. When your inner mass is so strong you need nothing extra. That's why you feel light, and everything needed starts finding you. Not through drama, through quality, not with noise, with balance. If you want to be the one who draws success, forget speed, remember density. Because the winner isn't the fastest, it's the one who goes deepest. And that depth starts with you, in how you live the day, not when they watch, but when you're alone. One of the most dangerous blocks to success is the need to be liked. That quiet energy whispering, what will they think? What if I'm misunderstood? What if I'm too much? That noise shrinks you, blurs you, dilutes you, because now you're not broadcasting truth. You're broadcasting a request, please accept me. Real success comes to those who stop asking, who become the answer. Who don't hand themselves over for approval, but move from inner alignment. And when that happens, the impact is undeniable. Not because you're loud, because your field speaks for you, because your position is thick, because you are deeply, quietly in agreement with yourself. You can't be magnetic if you're constantly shape-shifting, if you're sending your edges, if you're adapting to every room. That creates static. It makes you unclear. And unclear doesn't attract, it disappears. Become the one who doesn't need approval, not out of rebellion, out of self-respect. Because only when you stop needing the world's agreement does your voice finally rise. Only when you stop adjusting does your style sharpen. Only when you stop begging to fit does real attention find you. The world is tired of masks. It's searching for a rock, for you. And remember, the more you are, the more you attract. But that takes guts. To be you even when misunderstood. And that right there is the line between those who wait and those who build. There is one skill that separates those who stumble into luck from those who create it every day. It's the ability to hold your state, not in the spotlight, but in the silence. Not when everything works, but when it seems like nothing hears you. That's when your real field is formed, and that's when it gets tested. Are you calm because it's good, or because you are solid? Magnetic state is born from inner discipline. It's when you show up even when you don't want to. When you hold your posture even in the storm, when you stay in motion even without applause, because then you become someone criticism can't shake, praise can't bribe, and silence can't rattle. The world doesn't hand out opportunities to everyone. It gives them to those who already radiate readiness. And readiness isn't a speech, it's a behavior, it's a tone, a walk. It's how you hold your body when you enter, how you listen, how you decide. It's not a performance, it's a style. It's that quiet yes inside yourself that everyone feels even if they can't explain it. To become someone who attracts you have to detach from outcomes, from moods, from markets. You answer only to one contract, the one with you. I am already the one who's worthy, and what must arrive won't be a gift. It will be a response. And that's when the law kicks in. State attracts state. Power pulls power. Quality meets quality. You don't chase luck. You create gravity and let luck find you. There's a truth few people say out loud. People don't pay you for your skills. They pay you for your energy, for the state they feel in your presence. Because that's what builds trust. That's what makes the decision work with you or not, believe in you or not, follow you or walk away. And your energy, it's not random, it's not a mood, it's the result of your daily choices to be full, to be steady, to be here. People aren't drawn to those who ask. They're drawn to those who radiate, not aggressively, calmly, confidently. And that confidence is not in your words, it's in your sense of self, in your clarity that doesn't need confirmation, in your permission to be great, long before anything great has happened. If you want to be magnetic, stop. Ask yourself, what energy am I giving off? Not the one you're trying to show, the one that's actually there. Is it victim energy? Is it power, doubt, or action? Whatever it is, remember this. What you radiate is an invitation to people, to money, to challenges, or to their absence. Being magnetic means taking full responsibility for how you walk into the world. You don't have to scream for attention. The world starts turning its face to you because your state speaks louder than any message. And until you clean up your energy, it doesn't matter how much you know, because your state is louder than your resume. And when your energy is calm, clean, and certain, it becomes your ticket into rooms where no one gets invited. But those who belong, no one ever questions how they got there. There's a state you can't fake. You can't learn it from books. You can't build it in a day. It's the state of authorship, when you stop living someone else's script and take the pen into your own hand. That's the mindset of a creator, a whole human being. And that state is a magnet, because people don't follow information. They follow presence. They're not pulled to what you do. They're pulled to who you are. The author of their life doesn't wait, doesn't ask, doesn't look for permission. They have a vision, so they move. They have principles, so they set boundaries. They have rhythm, so they stay grounded. And that's what attracts. Not one more performer, but a presence that brings clarity. To build that presence, you have to be yourself, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Because pressure reveals your depth. And in challenge, trust in yourself is born. That trust is your foundation. Without it, all you've got is a mask. With it, you create a field that connects thought, word, walk, and silence. Real energy doesn't shout. It focuses. It knows how to be silent without fear. It acts without needing to be understood. And when you move from that place, people feel it instantly. They breathe easier around you, think deeper, and that's why they stay. The state of authorship is the highest level of influence. It doesn't convince, it just is. And by being, it creates. That's why the one writing their own story always attracts more than the one repeating someone else's. And you can step into that role at any moment. It starts with one thought. I'm done playing roles. I already am. There's a state where a person becomes inevitable. It's not magic. It's the result of one decision to never betray yourself again. It's when every action you take isn't to impress, but to go deeper into your truth. When you stop playing games and start living with intention. And that intention is louder than any speech, because it's pure, and purity always attracts. You cannot become magnetic while being someone who constantly adjusts. Those are opposing forces. As long as you're trying to be convenient for everyone, you're invisible. As long as you agree when you don't, people don't respect you. As long as you stay silent when you should speak, they don't hear you. And that's the key. It's not about selling yourself. It's about being undeniable. And being undeniable isn't a style. It's a decision to be whole. To attract, you have to keep yourself in focus. Not just on stage, but in the ordinary. When no one's clapping. When no one gets it. When no one replies. Because your power isn't in their reaction. It's in your loyalty to you. In the fact that you keep showing up. Keep speaking. You don't shrink because someone else is insecure. And that's why the one building presence always wins the long game. They're not building an image. They're building reality. They don't need the spotlight because they are the source of light. They don't wait for opportunity because they are the opportunity. And here's the truth. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be steady. You don't have to you have to hold your ground. And that's your magnetism, not the effect, the energy that doesn't run. That kind of state doesn't ask. It pulls. And that changes everything. There's a big difference between someone who wants attention and someone who is attention. The first one, always moving outward, always looking for reaction, always needing validation, always playing on someone else's field. And the louder they shout, the less they're heard. Because the world has learned to recognize hunger, and hunger repels. But the second, they're quiet. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't waste their words. Their presence is full. Their words sharp, their choices precise. And that's why attention flows to them, not from force, but from a natural pull towards strength. To be magnetic is to walk away from the need to be liked, to stop trying to impress, and to come home to yourself, to your own source, and every day in private to feed it through discipline, through principle, through an inner yes to your own depth. You can't be a magnet while living as a copy, because a copy is always second. A magnet is always first, not with volume, with presence. And that presence, it's formed when you stop giving yourself to things that shrink you, when you stop joining small talk, stop spending attention on someone else's drama, stop living to the rhythm of someone else's fear. A state that attracts is clean. No show, no rush, just the quality of your energy. And that energy either leaks through escape or thickens through focus. And when it thickens, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you get chased. You stop proving, you get seen. You stop speaking, and the world starts listening. There's a state where you stop asking, am I enough? Because you realize that question never had an answer. It was a trap. And as long as you tried to answer it, you stayed in a role. The role of someone who's always trying to prove, to justify, to explain. And in that role, you lose your strength. Magnetic presence begins with a choice. I already am. Not as a phrase, as a state, as a level of silence in your mind, a level of depth in your words, a level of clarity in your decisions. And from there it no longer matters who gets it, who accepts you, who claps, because your focus isn't on that. It's on your loyalty to yourself. And that loyalty is the loudest signal in the world. People don't come for facts. They come for power. Not for data, for quality, not for promises, for presence. And to build that presence, you don't perform. You purify yourself from falsehood, from need, from the constant question, but how does it look? Because while you're in that, you're not in your field. You're in a mask. And masks, they don't hold. Your state is your strategy. And it's either built or random. But random thinking will never create lasting success, because it reacts. And a magnet doesn't react. It creates, it holds, it leads. And that gives you a strength that cannot be faked. Don't start with a new project. Start with a new state, with a morning without noise, with a gaze without doubt, with a decision that is no longer negotiable. And then change won't come from outside. It'll come from within, because you've changed. And so will everything else. It has to, because you've become the magnet. There's a reason why some people seem convincing without saying a word while others talk for hours and leave no mark. It's not intellect. It's not charisma. It's integration. When your words, your gaze, your actions, your choices all line up, when there's no gap between what you say and how you live, that alignment, it's a magnet. You can't explain it, but everyone feels it. Success doesn't like false notes, because falsehood creates noise. It's when you say, I believe, but carry doubt. When you promise, I will, but break your own word. And that split, it's visible. It's in your voice, it's in your eyes, it's in the silence. And that's why doors that should open stay shut, because you're not on the right frequency yet. Integration isn't perfection, it's consistency. It means I don't betray myself even when no one's watching. I don't drop my principles even under pressure. I don't wear a mask depending on the crowd. I am. And that stability becomes a field, because when you're stable in yourself, people want that from you. Magnetic power doesn't come from appearance, it comes from being. And to be, you have to grow roots, deep ones, real ones, and feed them daily with actions that prove I am who I've decided to be. Not a role, a state, not for others, for yourself. The world doesn't test your words. It tests your reactions. And when your reactions match your essence, that's when presence is born. A presence that doesn't need to explain itself, because it's a fact. And that fact opens more doors than all your requests combined. There's a state where your energy speaks before you do. It's a state with no tension, no doubt, no over-effort, because you're not trying to earn trust. You live like you already have it. That confidence isn't arrogance, it's maturity. The kind where you stop asking, you start moving like someone who already belongs. People feel that instantly. They don't know why they're drawn to you, but they are, because you're not at war with yourself. And that inner peace, that's the loudest signal. Most are still fighting their own voice, their own worth, wanting to be someone and doubting they can. But you just are. To live in that state, you must let go of the fear of not being accepted, of not being understood, of being rejected, and say, I accept myself so deeply I no longer need approval. That's not isolation. That's autonomy. A place where your worth doesn't rely on applause. The magnetic one doesn't convince, doesn't push, doesn't beg, doesn't bend to expectation. They stand, not stiffly, but whole. And that wholeness, that's the magnet. While others are chasing, explaining, performing, the one who is quiet. And that silence speaks louder than any slogan. Walk into a room with that state and the room shifts. Because you're not just someone, you're a center of gravity. And everything important decisions, partnerships, resources, starts to revolve around gravity. Because the world, it's always looking for something to hold on to. And when you become that, the world stops asking, who are you? It starts asking, how can we work with you? Here's one fact to live by. The world doesn't respond to who you were. It responds to who you are right now. Yesterday's success means nothing. Past credentials don't create. What you did before doesn't build today's field. The only thing that attracts is your current quality. The way you show up, the way you speak without saying a word. Magnetic people aren't a look. They're a lifestyle, a daily practice, where your words, your walk, your intent align, where the gap between your vision and your presence disappears. It doesn't mean you're always strong, but it means you're always whole. Even in pain, even in exhaustion, even when no one's watching. The strongest people aren't the loudest or the smartest. They're the ones who live every day as a declaration. I already live at the level I want to receive. That's not acting. That's a deep choice to hold yourself in strength. Not sometimes, always. When you enter that state, doors don't suddenly open. They stop needing to, because you stop doubting whether you belong. And then things align. The right people appear. The chances show up. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Stop waiting for the moment. Build it from the inside, with discipline, with resolve, with quiet that becomes your anchor. Because from silence comes state, from state comes influence. And from influence comes a life where you don't knock anymore. You resonate. One thing everyone feels, your presence. Not your title, not your ambition, but the weight of who you are. Being here not just in body, but in depth, in steadiness, in the kind of rootedness that doesn't need to prove anything. And that's what makes you visible. The world doesn't revolve around the best. It moves around the most collected, the ones with no leaks, who don't vanish at every fear, who don't dissolve in someone else's expectation. Magnetism isn't random confidence. It's the outcome of systematic clarity. A daily filter, what you speak, what thoughts you let stay, what music you feed on, who you engage. That's what builds either noise or power. And if you live in noise, you stay invisible. But the moment you start purifying, your world shifts. To attract, you must be clear inside. No mixed messages, no hidden shame, no years of exhaustion left unhealed. Because it all leaks, and while it leaks, you stay closed. Magnets only work when whole. That's your real work. Not searching, cleansing, not forcing, shaping, not begging, reflecting. Because the world gives you only what you can hold. And you can only hold when there are no cracks. Not perfection. Responsibility for your state, for your energy, for your presence. Start small. Not with a new idea, but a new breath. A silent statement. I will no longer shrink, and step by step you'll become the one people come to. Not for noise, for peace, not for performance, for power, because real power isn't earned, it's unlocked from within. There's a level where success is no longer about action, it's about essence, because everything you want already responds, not to your plan, but to your person. Not to what you want, but to who you've become. And if the doors are still shut, it's not about the world. It's about, because when you're truly ready, you stop asking if you can. You walk in, and no one stops you, because they can't. Magnetism is the state where am I worthy no longer exists. Where the answer to that question is your walk, your presence, your unshaken action, your refusal to slow down just because others are silent. It's not blind stubbornness, it's clarity. I know who I am, and that's enough. The strongest people don't need outside validation. They've become their own source, and that's why they're respected, even by those who don't get them. Because respect doesn't come from arguments. It comes from integration, and in that state there's no fight. There's freedom, a quiet deep yes to yourself. No noise, no just presence so full it's impossible to miss. Your energy tells a story. It's either fear or stance. And the world, it doesn't read your resume. It reads your frequency. And if it's full, you attract. If it's empty, you repel. That's why the most important thing isn't how you look. It's how you sound without words. Be the one who no longer hides, no longer floats, no longer begs. Be the one whose presence is the answer. And then reality will start to mirror you. Not because you earned it, because you showed up fully. And that's always the beginning of something great. There's a pivotal moment when everything starts to shift. It's not an event, not a meeting, not a lucky break. It's the moment you stop building success around action and start building it around identity, around the person you're becoming. Because who you are, not your strategy, not your tools, not your tactics, is the real lever in the world of opportunity. Success doesn't come because you're doing everything right. It comes because you've become the kind of person who can handle it. Who doesn't lose themselves in it? Who doesn't break under it? Who uses success as a platform, not as a lifeboat? And that maturity inside you, that's the only foundation that lasts. As long as you're thinking, what do I need to do to get there? You're chasing. But the moment you shift to, who must I become so that this is normal for me, you become the magnet. You're not chasing anymore, you're broadcasting. And this signal, it needs no PR, no noise, no permission. The one who thinks in terms of becoming, not acquiring, never burns out. Because their fire isn't external, it's identity. And identity builds consistency. Consistency builds trust, and trust builds the field where resources, ideas, people find you, because you've started vibrating on a new frequency. Your success isn't in front of you, it's inside you. And for it to become real, you don't need to look outside. You need to shape the one who already is the answer to their own dreams. Not as a wish, but as a fact. But as a daily habit that changes everything. Check your state, not just your steps. You can do all the right things, but if your field is weak, your outcomes will wobble. You can show up to meetings, study tactics, make plans, but if you carry anxiety, neediness, self-doubt, it's just noise. Because action doesn't attract, purity does. The world is laser precise in how it reads you. It either opens or it pauses, not because it's judging, because big things won't land in unstable soil. They look for the one who can hold them, the one who already is who they've been searching for. That's why the real work is invisible. The discipline of holding a high energy state. This isn't fake positivity. It's not smile and hope. It's real depth. I know what I want. I know who I am. I know I won't quit. And that kind of inner certainty without proof, that's already a signal. And the world answers signals. Those who train their state daily don't lose momentum. They might fall, but they don't stay down. They might doubt, but they don't let doubt drive. They keep pulling themselves back to center, because they understand the situation doesn't make the move. The mood you're in does. If you feel stuck right now, don't blame the world. Look within. What energy are you projecting? What's your level of self-trust? How much joy do you bring into your own life? Because that's your strategy. And it either opens the space or it keeps it shut until you shift. There's a moment when you stop being the one who wants and start being the one who radiates. And that's where real power begins. Because when you want, you ask, you send out this signal, I'm not there yet, but I wish. And that energy, it doesn't attract. It speaks of lack. And lack never pulls in abundance. But when you radiate, everything changes. You stop asking for permission. You stop hoping to be recognized. You live as someone who already not in title, in presence. And that becomes the marker. Because people, situations, resources, they're drawn to fullness, to maturity, to steadiness. The truth is, the world mirrors you. If you don't trust yourself, others won't. If you don't hear yourself, others won't listen. If you wait for the outside to approve, you'll be waiting forever. Because the only yes that matters comes from inside. And once that yes is loud enough, everything else begins to respond. Being the source isn't ambition, it's a way of being. A practice of staying full even when nothing affirms you, of standing rooted even when the world's quiet, because you know it's not the world that kicks things off. It's you. And here's the key. The world doesn't care how long you've waited. It reacts to who you are in this moment. And if you're already radiating, the doors, they have no choice. They open because they don't respond to words. They respond to presence. There's a difference between someone who has success and someone who creates it. The first one depends on externals. They ride the wave until it crashes. Then they vanish. Because their success was never inside. But the second, they are the wave. Even in silence, in crisis, in solitude, they burn. Because their fire isn't out there. It's within. This person doesn't need perfect conditions. They don't adapt to reality. They shape it. They don't ask for change. They are the change. And that's why people are drawn to them. Around them rhythm forms, direction appears, clarity returns. And clarity is what everyone seeks, even if they can't say it. To be the source of success isn't about pressure. It's not about impressing. It's about the silence that holds authority, the focus that earns trust, the consistency that gives people safety. And that quality, it's rare. Because it doesn't come from image. It comes from integrity. I no longer betray myself. That person demands nothing, but receives. They don't bargain. They magnetize. They don't rush. They set the pace. And that pace becomes the new standard. Because when you're light, people don't come because you call. They come because darkness can't soothe them anymore. If you want more than success, if you want to be the source, forget forms. Return to fire. Is it burning in you? Or are you waiting for someone to light it? Because once it's burning, it doesn't matter where you are. You've already become what the world is searching for. Not because you chased, because you glowed. There's a state you reach where there's no going back. It's not a result, not fame, not your first big paycheck. It's the inner knowing, I've become the one who no longer asks, who no longer explains, who no longer shrinks. It's that turning point where you stop looking for the door and realize you are the door. And that's when everything begins to shift. The world is drawn to power. Not the image of power, but its essence. And if you want opportunities, people, and resources to be drawn to you, don't start with moves. Start with presence. With the silence where direction is born. With the clarity where you become whole. With the moment where you stop conforming and start resonating. Be the one who no longer plays the game of looking right. Start playing the game of being real. Because real always hits deeper. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't sway, it just is. And that presence alone moves worlds. One last thing to remember. You don't need to wait to be chosen. Choose yourself first. And when that choice is deep, unwavering, whole, nothing stays the same. Because you're no longer someone who wants success. You're someone who radiates it. And in that state, doors don't open with keys. They open with